Despite the media playing up the fact that crime in New York City is way up, NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton told me the city is very much on track to match the low murders of last year. He also spoke about the anti-police protests last year and why he says they went way too far. Bratton on crime, declaring that despite the media attention, New York is still very much on track to match the low murders of last year. Set the record for us.
Well, as of this morning, Dominic, we have 15 more murders than we did at this time last year, and we have 30 more shooting incidents than we did at this time last year. But I'd point out that last year was a record low year for murders, and I think it was the second lowest year for shootings in the modern history of the city. So while murders and shootings are up, our expectation is as the year continues, similar to last year, that as we end the year, I would fully expect that we might end up the year with shootings and murders down once again or close to where they were last year. So the perception in some respects is a reality. Those two categories are up, but overall crime is down by 6 to 7%. And so we're at record low for overall crime.
Hands up!
Don't shoot! Bratton on protests against the NYPD.
What we want to make sure of is that we don't have a repeat of the events of December in the city where people were marching around signs and chanting, what do we want? Dead cops. And what did we end up with? Dead cops. That's where the insanity actually became too much.
And Bratton having some fun at the expense of us. I try to keep my personal opinion out of things as much as possible. But
when did that start?
One thing I've always liked about you is that you'll sit down and do an interview.
I'm really going to lean into this one. Okay, let me hear this. I'm all ears.
Well, Commissioner Bratton, I've been covering you for now over 20 years, and
we both had a lot more hair back then when we started.
we both had a lot more hair. Commissioner Bratton, it's an honor and a privilege to chat with you. Okay. Now, I'm a little sensitive about this topic here. Professor, do I still have some hair? I'm a little sensitive about that. I'm a little sensitive. You can make fun of me as a journalist. You can say I'm not fair. But, you know, brother still got a little bit of hair, right? Brad, do I still have a little bit of hair?
It looks good to me.
Okay, Professor, let's talk about the serious topics now, and then we'll get to another one, a controversy involving the commissioner. Crime versus perception. We know that murders and shootings are up, but if you listen to us folks in the media, you know, all hell is about to break loose. How do you see this, Professor?
You know, I think he's the great commissioner of our time, and I have to say that up front. But what else do we expect him to say at this point? The reality is the data shows shootings are up, murders by gun crimes are up, rape is up. And so that is a problem for him. Now, he may be, hopefully he's right, that as the year goes on, these dissipate, these diminish, and you know, crime is down. And he's absolutely right, crime has been down for several years. But to say that we are making this up is simply not the case. Now, the media makes up a lot of stuff. Those crime statistics are released by the NYPD. If they're not right, he should tell us, and they are right.
Okay, but Frank, one point that he made, and I, you know, you're going to say I'm drinking this Kool-Aid, but I have to say,
we all love Bill Bratton. We're all drinking.
Okay. So we're all having a little bit of the Kool-Aid. Sure. But I have to say, he said, look, Dominic, murders from the days, you know, of 2,200 a year, they're now down to a couple of hundred. So when you have an increase of 15, percentage-wise, that sounds like a much bigger, you know, amount. Looking there, going back to you know, 2000, from 1990, 2245 down to 2014. So, but does he have a point?
Well, absolutely. You can't have crime that low and expect it to keep getting lower. That's true. But I don't think that anybody's making too big of a deal about the increase in shootings. Last year, shootings were up from the previous year, but murders were down. So I thought to myself when the mayor and the commissioner were talking about this, it's so bizarre. They're trumpeting the fact that murders are down even though shootings are up. Poor aim and good health care is not a policing strategy. The bottom line, though, Dominic, is you have shootings up 2 years in a row. It just so happens that we've stopped doing stop, question, and frisk at the same levels Commissioner Kelly was doing it. What's happening?
So there's a correlation.
In my view, I think there is. I think what you're seeing, Dominic, is, first of all, this is to say nothing of the poor morale of the police department who feel that the mayor doesn't have their back. But what you're seeing is, under the stop, question, and frisk era of Ray Kelly and Mike Bloomberg and Commissioner Bratton and Commissioner Safer and Commissioner Carrick, is you saw people afraid to carry a weapon because they thought they were going to be stopped, questioned, and frisked. But now, people are carrying weapons, and because these gang rivals know that the other guy is carrying a weapon, they feel emboldened. They feel they have no choice but to carry a weapon. What used to happen, Dominic, is you'd get into a beef with somebody on the street, and you were a street-savvy guy, you know better than anybody, that just going home to get that weapon was a natural cooling-off period. Now there's no cooling-off period. So 15 may not be a lot, but 15's a lot if you know one of those 15 people that's been murdered.
Listen, to protect the civil liberties of those that are on the streets and do not carry weapons and do not now have to be stopped, questioned, and frisked for no reason, and now we have a blip in crime, I think is a fair trade-off. That being said, is the pendulum may have swung too far. The pendulum of completely or really drastically reducing the stop, question, and frisk. And that is true, Frank. That's what's going on the streets. That's why people are carrying weapons more so now than ever before. Okay, that pendulum has swung too far. I think the commissioner just got what he wanted from the city council in the budget. He just got, I think, another $1,000 or $1,500, 1,300 police officers to be put on the street. I think this is going to also assist in crime and cut down some of the activities that we've been seeing. But there's no question that this, A, has to do with stop, question, and frisk, and B, those of us who want to protect the civil liberties of those who are violated by overzealous police officers. So that's a positive thing. The upward tick in shootings and deaths, and it's hard to say this, but maybe it's not so big in relation to the civil liberties that are protected when you do the balancing act. And the other thing is, once we get down towards the next part of the year, and I think that's what the commissioner was talking about, when he gets his more cops on the street and people calm down a little bit and maybe they can do some more stop, question, and frisk, that the crimes will come down and maybe be a lowest crime year
Professor,
ever.
I'm about to go to a controversy involving Mr. Bratton, but from your point of view, is this already a campaign issue hurting the mayor?
It could potentially be, and I think, just to broaden this out, this is a problem for Democrats of perception. Look, Mayor de Blasio came in saying, we can do these things, we can protect civil rights, and we can keep crime down. If he can't do both at the same time, it's a problem. And we've seen this not just in New York. We see the same thing playing out in Baltimore and other cities across the country. Progressives have to show they can do both. If they can't do both, it's a problem for them, because if you talk to people on the down low, they'll say Democrats can't safely police a city. And that's a problem for de Blasio and all other Democratic mayors across the country.
Okay, let's talk about the controversy that Bratton made headlines, and I don't know if he intentionally did this, but the comment that he made that was attributed to him was that it's very hard to find black males to serve on the NYPD because of their criminal records as it relates to felonies. And so the commissioner in our interview explained, I thought that he might back away from this comment. He didn't. In a second, I'll tell you about some of the changes that he's making, the historic changes to bring more blacks in. But he went on record as saying, yes, it's hard to hire black men because of criminal records. Let's take a look.
According to Bureau of Justice Statistics, BJA, the official federal government statistics, 30%, might even be as high as 31% of African American males have served time in prison, and that the Washington Post and New York Times both had recent articles indicating figures between 20 and 30% who had arrest records, felony arrest records, or prison time, that made it difficult for businesses, as well as we the police, to hire African American males in that population group.
Now, Frank, I have to be honest with you. I did not know, based on FBI statistics. We've all heard the stereotypes that are out there and so on, but I did not know that 31%, if you believe what the commissioner says, of black men have felonies, and in his word has actually served time in prison for felonies. I didn't know that that was the case. But is it wise for the commissioner to talk about this, or is he just being realistic with what he's dealing with?
Well, look, I think I give the commissioner an enormous amount of credit for two reasons. One, for saying this, which is statistically true, and two, for not lowering the standards of the police department. We want a racially diverse and, in every respect, diverse police department. They'll do a more effective job policing communities of color and the city as a whole. But we don't want to get into a situation where we start eliminating the standards for a certain amount of college credits for not having had a criminal record. So I give the commissioner a lot of credit here. One of the areas that I think is also wise is they're doing away with the question on the application, have you ever been stopped and frisked? Obviously, if you're stopped and frisked and you didn't commit a crime, there's no reason that you should have to answer that question in the affirmative. So there's a lot of positive steps that the commissioner can take to improve outreach to the black community, and I think he's making those steps. But no, I give him a lot of credit here in this ultra politically correct world for saying what the truth is.
Brad, when we sat down with him, I really expected the commissioner to tippy-toe around this issue, and he did not.
Well, the facts are the facts. I mean, he's seeing them every single day. As if he's having a certain amount of applications and they have to reject because of criminal records. That's the facts. I think the bigger problem is, first of all, the mass incarceration, which is causing all these problems, okay, and and putting people away for drug crimes when they really need some kind of rehabilitation. But that may be too big for this particular show. But what you can do right now is start recruiting more black people to take the exam. We need a lot more.
And he says he's doing that.
Yeah, and one thing is for sure is we need more black police and Hispanic police officers. That is for certain. So if we need to have double or triple the amount apply, then we need to draw that many people in, because we need a very diverse police force to reflect the population that's out there in our city.
Professor, are you surprised the commissioner would come out there publicly?
No, I think he's always been honest, and he's an intellectually honest person. But let me just take a step back and say, I think you can't find anyone who disagrees with the idea of diversifying as far as possible the police force. I was one of the first people to criticize the NYPD because it does not have diversity, particularly in the leadership, let's remember.
Well, he did point out, I want you to continue your point. He did point out that 15% of the police force is African American. Now, we didn't break down leadership.
Now, you look at leadership, and it's a lot lower. That's a huge problem. That said, to take a step back and go to Frank's point about effectiveness, I was stunned to look at the research on this and to find that racism that happens between police and the community happens regardless of the race of the police officer. So to just say we're going to diversify our police forces and that's going to really help with community relations is not effective. You have to do more, and that goes to his points about training and everything else.
And Baltimore approves that.
And Baltimore approves that because a diverse police force does not mean anything in terms of police community relations. Police, it's an institutional racism there. It's not about the race of the cop.
But there's also one other thing about diverse police forces. There's one extra and important component.
It's important. I agree with you.
People must live in New York City too.
Yeah.
The cops must. If they're coming from Westchester, Suffolk on Long Island, or what have you, and then coming into the city to try to serve, I think that's not. I don't think that's a great thing for our city. I think we need city people policing our streets because they have a commitment, they have skin in the game, and they have an interest in protecting their own city.
Up next, President Obama had a week to remember last week. How can he top it?